first issue is from Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan to ask the Minister for Justice and Equality to redress payments to survivors of the Magdalene Laundry. Deputy O'Sullivan.
Thank you. Okay, Tom Briach den Shans Lart Fein Overshaw Anocht Agus Kashtina Agus Sulagam Fragri Dáil. I'm very grateful that this topic has been chosen tonight. I really believe that the time for speeches is over, so I won't be making a speech as such, so I will be as brief as I can be. And I want to go back to June the 25th, first of all, to what the Department of Justice had said, which was reported also on October the 21st in one of the newspapers, that the government, on the 25th of June, approved the immediate implementation of a cash lump sum payments scheme based on duration of stay in laundries recommended by Judge John Quirke, and tasked an interdepartmental group with giving further detailed consideration to the steps necessary to implement the other recommendations, some of which are complicated and will require legislation. Over 150 applications have been received and are being processed. And the final quote, it's expected that the first offers of payments of a lump sum will issue within 4 to 6 weeks of the government decision. Now, that was similar to the reply that I received in September to a question from you. And I want to make one point before I ask the question, is that since the apology last February, 2 of the ladies from the laundries have passed away. And today, Tuesday the 5th of November, no woman who has been in the laundry has received the lump sum payment or has received any other entitlement. I noted in the budget that Minister Noonan did say that the lump sums would be tax-free. Now, I would have assumed that that was a given. So my question is, and it's based on, we all have feelings of compassion and understanding of what went on in the laundries. And I do acknowledge that in this government, more has been progressed than at any other time since the laundries came into existence. But I would like to know about the government decision. Has it been made? If not, when will it be made, so that people can then count the 4 to 6 weeks from that decision? So that's the basic question, Minister, that I want to put to you. And I want to use the time, prefer to have the time for your reply.
Deputy Minister, should say
first
4
of
minutes.
all, let me thank Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan for raising this important matter and for giving me the opportunity to speak on the issue. The House will be aware that Minister of State Kathleen Lynch and I announced, as the Deputy referred to, a scheme of lump sum payments on the 26th of June 2013 for women who were admitted to and worked in the Magdalene Laundries, St Mary's Training Centre, Stanhope Street, and House of Mercy Training School, Summerhill and Wexford. This followed the publication of the report by Mr Justice Quirke, President of the Law Reform Commission, on the establishment of an ex gratia scheme, a comprehensive range of supports for the women involved. The Government tasked, as the Deputy mentioned, an interdepartmental group with giving further detailed consideration to the steps necessary to implement the other recommendations in Mr Justice Quirke's report. Pending completion of that report, arrangements were put in place in my department to invite and process applications for the women involved. To date, just over 600 application forms have been received, and over 250 of these have been processed to an advanced stage. The report of the interdepartmental group was discussed and the final details of the scheme agreed at Cabinet this morning. Full details of the scheme will be published over the next few days. The payment of lump sums, as recommended by Judge Quirke, will be made by my department. In cases where application forms have been completed and records verified, and subject to the clarification of a few legal issues by the Office of the Attorney-General, I expect that my department will be in a position to issue the first offers of payments within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So, Deputy, you now have your date. The provision of other benefits, including weekly payments from the Department of Social Protection and also medical services to be provided through the Department of Health, will be dependent on the introduction of administrative and legislative measures. Work has already commenced on these measures and they will be progressed as soon as possible, so that no individual is prejudiced by the time required to give effect to the Government's decision. Weekly payments to be made pursuant to the scheme are to be backdated to the 1st of August 2013. As announced in the budget, these ex gratia lump sum payments will be exempt from income tax, as well as the weekly payments, and this will be provided for in the Finance Bill. Judge Quirke, and indeed it had to be provided for, Deputy, in the Finance Bill. It couldn't have happened without express provision. Judge Quirke recommended that as a precondition of receiving benefits under the scheme, the women concerned should sign a waiver not to take proceedings against the state. Before signing the waiver, the women will be encouraged to receive independent legal advice. Applicants will be facilitated to engage their own choice of solicitor and will be provided with a maximum amount from the state of €500 plus VAT as a contribution to the cost of obtaining legal advice with regard to the signing of the waiver. I am very pleased that the payments of the lump sums will commence very shortly, and as already stated, full details of the scheme will be published over the next few days. It was particularly appropriate. The Deputy raised the matter for today. She was very prescient. The matter has been pending to be dealt with by Cabinet, has been dealt with today. There's a formal announcement being made on foot of the Cabinet decision, and of course I'm very anxious that we progress matters further. There does remain a considerable number of applications to be dealt with still, some still, there's various verification procedures that need to be dealt with, but the final issue that the Deputy raised was the passing away of 2 individuals, and it is envisaged under Judge Quirke's scheme that if someone did pass away between the time of the announcement of the scheme and the lump sum payment the lump sums becoming payable, that a payment would be made to the estate of those individuals.
Deputy, have you a supplemental?
Yeah, I have, yes. And I really very much welcome what you said, so that the countdown can actually begin from today. And I think it's important also the point about the independent legal advice that the women can get. Now, the other, just one of the question briefly, is that there have been discrepancies between the McAleese report and Judge Quirke's report, particularly in relation to physical abuse of the ladies, and also in relation to duration of stay. And I note in the McAleese report that 61% of those he interviewed were there less than 1 year, but there were 58% of the admissions who were not recorded in his findings. Whereas in Judge Quirke's Commission on length of stay, there were 27% less than 1 year, and he had 68% of the people he spoke with for 1 to 5 years, 13% 5 to 10 years, and 9% 10 years and more. So because of those discrepancies regarding length of stay and regarding the issue of physical abuse, will you be committed to holding an independent forum for survivors so that they can offer testimony regarding the length of stay and also physical abuse that they suffered?
Minister.
Can I say to the Deputy, in the context of many of the former residents of the Magdalene homes, they very much welcomed the engagement of Professor McAleese. They very much welcomed the very careful consideration and, if I could say, sensitive engagement that he had with them. They were generally very pleased with the report that was published, and many of them don't want to revisit this issue. They were anxious that the state accept its responsibilities. The state and the Taoiseach, on behalf of the state, apologised for the suffering that they experienced. And our focus now is on implementing the scheme for their benefit. We don't believe there's anything additional that would be beneficial to anyone that can be achieved by further inquiries by individuals who've been through stress in their lives, again being required in some way to recount past events. Senator McAleese did a very careful investigation. Now, in the context of what the Deputy says, as between Judge Quirke and Professor McAleese, it wasn't Judge Quirke's job to investigate the background to the Magdalene Laundries. What Judge Quirke was asked to do, based on the findings of Professor McAleese, was propose the most appropriate ex gratia scheme that could be put in place to assist these women. And he had contact with numbers of them. But he wasn't asked to, and didn't, I think, attempt to make any definitive decision as to who was, as to exactly what percentage of women experienced different types of difficulties. Of course, the issue here, in the context of the scheme, is the women have to establish 2 things. The first, that they were in either one of the Magdalene Laundries or the other 2 institutions named, and second, the length of time they were there. And in the context of the sisters involved, they are fully cooperating in providing all of the necessary records to try and establish and verify timeframes. This has already been done in respect of over 250 applicants. And I know in the context of some of those being processed, the information is available. There will be some difficulty with a small number of women where records are imperfect, and there may well be issues where there's some form of disagreement with regard to length of times. But this hasn't emerged yet as a major difficulty, I'm advised by my officials. We will obviously deal with matters in as sensitive and as careful a way as is possible, bearing in mind the difficulties that all of the women went through during their lives.
Thank you, Minister.